All right. Hey, this is Brent Leary, and uh, you're gonna probably see me doing a lot of these over the next several weeks because I will be cramped up in this house, kind of hunkered down like everybody else is. But I always enjoy an opportunity to speak with Ron Miller. I've known Ron at least a decade, I think. It was way
Yeah, a
before
long
you were at
time.
TechCrunch. So Ron Miller is the enterprise. I call you the go-to guy at TechCrunch for the enterprise beat. But he's also beyond just that. You speak, you moderate, you do panels, you do all sorts of stuff. So Ron, thank you for joining me all the way up from up there in Boston, where what's going up in Boston? I don't know what's going
Well,
on there.
aside from, everything else that's going on in the world, we lost our quarterback.
He just wanted to go. It looks like he wanted to go as far south as he could possibly get. It looks like.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens with him. I think that his best chance at a ring, if he wanted a ring, was to stay with Belichick in New England. I don't think his best chance is in Tampa, but he's a winner, so who knows? We'll
I
see what
think he
happens.
wants to prove that he can do it without Belichick. I give him
Could
credit
be,
for that.
could be.
I'm sure that's not the thinking of the folks up your way, but hey, do you
I
guys
mean,
wish
some
him
people. I
good
don't know
luck at least?
if you saw the like some people are taking it very seriously. If you've seen some of the things on social media, my feeling is, 20 years, 6 championships. We had a good run.
You got to wish him the best, right? That's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah.
I just am glad that Belichick is not with his partner anymore. So we'll see. We'll see. I always thought Walsh was the best up until Belichick as coach. But we'll see if he can pull this off. If he can pull off getting close, I tip my hat to the guy.
Well, I mean, if you look at the one example, and then we can start talking about technology. But if you look at the one example of the year where Brady was down with the knee injury in 2008, and he had Matt
Jimmy G. Oh, that was
Cassell,
right. That was Scott Castle or
Matt
Matt
Cassell.
Castle. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so Castle, he took the team to 11-5, which is the best record. I was just looking at an article on NFL.com not long ago. Was It was the best record not to make the playoffs in like the last 30 or 40 years. So, I think the like an 80s Denver team also went 11-5 and didn't make the playoffs. So it was a really freakish thing that they didn't make the playoffs. And he took Matt Cassell, who was then traded to Kansas City and proved
Did
to be not
nothing.
not a great quarterback. So he could make. I mean, I don't know. I think they have to get a couple of bodies, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and this has been your edition of Sports Talk. I mean,
Now
we
we're
could
going to talk
probably do
about
that
the
forever,
virus,
but
the
we better move
technology,
on,
and the
right?
impact on industry, and all of that stuff that's going on out there right
Yeah,
now
forget
outside
all
of
that.
Tom Brady.
All right, so as you said, we're in. I don't know if interesting times is the right way to put it. We're in very tough times, but the show has to go on to a certain extent. People are still working, even if it's working from home, and businesses are still trying to do things for their customers. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so and you have a unique perspective or a unique view of what's going on doing what you do at TechCrunch. So, I mean, just give me your kind of overall perspective of where things stand, in the tech enterprise startup scene with what's going on today.
Well, I mean, I think this is a body blow to the economy in general. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen, Wall Street react to it. Obviously, small businesses and most startups are small businesses are going to have, a negative impact here. It makes it, it's always a challenge to be a startup. And, there are so many things stacked up against you to get from, that idea to market, to get from market to, uh, maybe IPO, and we see people do succeed at it, but it's a very, very hard road. When you throw up an obstacle like this, which is economic upheaval, it makes it more difficult. So I think that's for starters. Um, yeah, I think certain businesses will probably thrive in this, as we're seeing, for instance, with Zoom, whose business is way up. Um, I guess they don't qualify as a startup anymore, but they're still a young company. Um, and certain companies will do well. For companies who need face-to-face meetings with customers, who have to kind of where there's a lot of hand holding involved, I think it's going to be another obstacle for them, and they're going to have to work hard to overcome it and hunker down until we can start doing more face-to-face stuff again. But as far as big companies, they're obviously going to be in a better position to handle it. But looking at the work from home thing for a minute, I think that some companies are equipped to handle it and some aren't. And a colleague of mine shared, a Twitter stream or Twitter conversation with me this morning where some people were talking about, financial services companies were sending their folks home. Well, most of these folks work at a computer at a desk, right? So when yes, you can do the work at home, but do you have the equipment to do it? Do you have a setup? Do you have there's so many challenges involved. Do you have broadband? Has the company set up VPN? If you're a financial services company, chances are you're not like completely bought into the cloud. So, how do you tunnel in? How do you get access to the company's networks? you know, there's just a whole bunch of challenges there for the companies themselves and for the individuals who are being asked to work this way who have never worked this way. So I don't think you can minimize that. Um, you know, at the, I mean, look at what's happening with schools right now.
Mm.
My niece is just a freshman at Boston University, and she's having to zoom in. She says it's been working remarkably well. My wife works at UMass, and she's having to deal with that. There's a lot of intensive training going on right now, but there are a lot of people who have never worked this way, and you can't minimize that. You can't just drop them in the water without training and say, okay, here you go, now work from home, because it's just, I mean, I've worked from home most of my adult
I was
life.
going to ask, how long have you been working from home, right? Yeah.
I'm used to it, but for people who aren't, it's a challenge. And if you have kids at home who now aren't at school, that's just another challenge. And then if you're supposed to homeschool those kids now,
Mm.
essentially that's even a bigger challenge. You and your spouse have to kind of manage all of that and find spaces to work and have your meetings, and it's not going to be a slam dunk, that's for sure.
What do you think this does in terms of kind of focus areas for startups and enterprise, in terms of, does this transition away from some of the focus that they were in, as everybody is talking about AI and so going so deep and wide with AI tech and startups around that? Do you see the potential of a shift in focus for folks seeing kind of the needs that are going to crop out of what we're going through right now, and being able to kind of pivot and do some things that speak to these specific needs? Because I'm assuming that this may be an impetus for more folks to work from home, but there's also going to be long-term impact and behavioral changes that happen after we get past this this initial crisis.
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking about this with people a lot lately, that there are going to be positive outcomes from this. It's a crazy situation, but there will be some positive impacts. Whoops, did you? Okay,
Yep, we're still here.
hold on, I'm getting a call. Um,
Uh-oh. The life of a tech reporter, right?
so I apologize for that.
That's
Um,
okay.
so I mean, I think there will be some positive outcomes from this, and if companies realize they can do this, there is a way to work from home for employees who want to work from home. It could reduce traffic. It could reduce, the intensity of the commutes. It could take pressure off public transport. We've seen. I saw an article just the other day. Somebody shared with me about how the amount of pollution in China has dropped dramatically just in a few months because the factories are shut down. No, I understand the factories being shut down is not a good thing, but having the pollution reduced is a good thing. And it shows us if we can, put our minds to this, we can reduce, air pollution in a pretty significant way. And, part of that is getting to work. And so if we can, reduce the number of people on the road and, the trains and buses and everything else that runs to get us to work, um, that's going to have a positive outcome in the end. Now, in terms of technology, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think some of this artificial intelligence that's being developed now is kind of a foundational technology for a lot of the things that are running now will be part of that and helping people, do some of these manual things that are, you know, require people to be in the office to kind of make this kind of workflow happen could be reduced by some artificial intelligence and making workflows more intelligent. And I think people are going to be thinking about that a lot. I spoke to a startup the other day called uh, Adaptation, I think it was called. They're out of New Hampshire, um, and they are creating a layer on top of Salesforce, which creates kind of a workflow and plugins that provide information and workflows that people need to do their job. That's over and above kind of the out of the box Salesforce. It's kind of a cool idea, and I think this idea of helping people smooth out and modify workflows is going to be more important than ever. Can artificial intelligence help with that? Yes. But I think, just any kind of programming and algorithms can also help with that. And I think you're right. We will see probably more of that and we'll see that, speeding up. And again, I'm not talking about replacing humans. I'm talking about, augmenting humans and
Right.
making their lives easier because, we're seeing now that we need all the help we can get.
We definitely need that, and it kind of leads to something you just said about maybe these startups are going to leverage the power of these enterprise platforms to do things a little bit faster and take it. I don't know if take advantage of the situation or respond to the kind of the current environment. Do you see, companies like Salesforce, like Oracle, like Microsoft with these Amazon, they have these platforms that startups may be able to leverage to pivot faster than if they tried to do it on their own.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's always existed, right? I mean, and Salesforce has been in particular, uh, I kind of this catalyst for side businesses like the one I just referenced. There's a whole bunch of needs when you have a huge platform like that, and there's like pulling all of those pieces together. They do so much across sales and service and marketing, and you have the programming pieces, and you have so many different pieces there, and they're not alone, obviously, in that. I think to some extent maybe this does help the API companies, the Twilios and the Stripes and that kind of ilk to, you know, uh, that there'll be more of that. I've been talking to one company that will be, like trying to, help in that regard. And I think that we'll see more of that for sure, because there's going to be a need to create tools more quickly. And this will expose that and create a business opportunity. And wherever there's a business opportunity, startups and established companies will step into the breach to try and provide solutions. And I mean, I think, again, as horrible as this situation is, and it's obviously terrible, um, that necessity really is the mother of invention, to use a trite phrase, but it's true. And people are going to start coming up with stuff. I mean, we've seen it in the research, medical research already. People are already coming up with. I read this morning that in Australia, scientists have isolated the antibodies that people who have recovered developed,
Wow.
to battle the virus, to battle COVID-19 virus, and that's information that they can use to create, drugs that can combat the virus. So, the creativity of humanity is on display here, and I think that we're going to start to see, more creative ways to deal with all aspects of this social and political and technological issues that we're facing. I mean, look at this. I have a friend who has a medical issue right now. He was supposed to go in to see the doctor in a couple of weeks, and the doctor just said, look, we're going to do it on the phone. They have all the stuff, they have all the information, all the, you know, the uh, the upfront work has been done. So is there really a need to go into the office? No, there really
Wow.
isn't. So again, you know, that kind of pushing of that, whereas we would have been more complacent about just, okay, let's just do it the way we've been doing it. We'll start to see more of, people trying different things because they have to try different things. And that could be, another, uh, positive outcome. And again, I try to be a positive person. I recognize the gravity of the situation, but I still think that, from all of this, there'll be lessons to be learned, and there'll be businesses to be built, and there'll be solutions to be, developed.
Do you also think that looking at kind of the economic conditions currently, and the stock market going up 2,000 and down 3,000, and valuations seemingly going, oil prices crashing. Do you see this as a opportunity for bigger companies to make acquisitions that will help kind of fill in pieces or holes in their platforms?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I mean, and I was thinking about this the other day. It's you brought it up. Obviously, we were chatting before, but I had actually been thinking about this, that some companies that were my colleague Alex Wilhelm wrote a piece the other day about how a lot of these unicorns, their window closed.
Mhm.
Suddenly it got slammed shut. And if that's the case, if Alex is right, and Alex is a pretty pretty smart guy, uh, if some companies, had lost an exit option, then, and obviously another exit option would be to be acquired,
Mhm.
and that, I mean, that's probably going to be a situation where it might not be for as much as it once was, unless it's one of these things that we were just talking about, and it fills in a hole that absolutely solves a problem that people need to address right now.
Right.
Then, you still have leverage. But for companies who have lost some leverage, um, the exit opportunity may come from, the usual suspects of Microsoft and Oracle and Amazon and, Google and, all of these big companies that tend to acquire companies, and even, companies who are looking to grow quickly, like ServiceNow is right now, for instance.
Mhm.
Um, sure, I think that, there's going to be a lot of that. I think we'll see, a lot more private equity action, which we've been seeing a lot of anyway,
Right.
where companies who are undervalued are being acquired by private equity, and they pump them up. They sometimes they sell them, as they did with what was it Marketo, or
Yeah. Yeah. What was that
I
investment
think it
firm?
was
They bought
Vista who bought
Marketo. They
them.
bought a couple of them, and then they started spinning them out, which was kind of interesting because I
Right. I
thought
mean,
most of the times they buy them to create some kind of a suite and then
right.
kind of sell that off. Yeah.
So I mean, it was they prop them up. They had them modernize the platform, and then Adobe comes in and pays a good sum of money, and they made a
Yeah.
tidy profit on that. So I mean, you could see, Warren Buffett, he always says that, when the market is down, that's when he buys. He where everybody's running away from the fire, he's running toward it. And I think companies right now who are in this business of buying and selling companies could, in fact, get some bargains, find a way to, because private equity isn't what it once was. I mean, private equity used to be, you buy the company and, you sell off the pieces, and then
Right.
you make some money off the license revenue for 10 years, and then, and then it kind of dies and withers on the vine. Um, I have a friend who calls that elder care for older companies. but, you know, private equity now is more about, and I've actually been talking to a bunch of private equity firms because I'm working on a story on it. So it's timely and top of mind for me. But private equity now is more about buying firms that have value, but for whatever reason are undervalued or don't have the money to update their platform, or they want to exit, to pay their investors and their employees, and do the right thing by them. And there are a lot of reasons why companies get bought and sold, but this is certainly an opportunity where I think you could possibly buy a company, for a good value, do the stuff that like Vista has, like a whole operation going on where they,
Yeah.
marketing and sales training and finance, and they put you through your paces, and they build up the company, and then sometimes they just keep it, sometimes they go public, sometimes they sell them. So there's opportunities here, bottom line. And I think you're right. We're probably going to see more acquisitions in the coming months as a result of this downturn.
Which is pretty interesting because the year started off, at least Salesforce, they had 2 or 3 acquisitions already this year,
Right. Right.
and so, and then even their partners were acquiring. I remember the story you did with what was it, Cognizant? It was one of those
Yeah,
emphasis terms.
one of the
Yeah,
big firms
system, yeah, partners
out of
for
India
yeah,
bought a Salt Lake City firm. I can't
yeah.
remember the
I
name
cannot,
right now.
I can't remember which one it is
but
right
they,
now, but
but
yeah,
they bought them as Salesforce consultants. They're Salesforce.
right,
They go in and they help people use Salesforce more effectively and implement it in a way that is customized for their organizations. And something that sometimes organizations struggle with is they work with a platform that is that uh, complex and
right.
and big. So uh, yeah, I think we've already seen it, but now there might be and a lot of this goes back to the repatriation of cash that we saw. I don't know, maybe 12 or 18 months ago, and we were talking about how we were probably going to see companies using that cash hoard because they have better access to it now to buy more companies. And I think we've seen some of that. We've seen some big deals. I mean, we obviously saw Red Hat for 34 billion, which is the biggest deal. Can you hear the train behind me? We saw the Salesforce buying it's escaping me now, the Seattle company, for
Oh, which one?
15 billion.
The data company. Man, how are we forgetting that?
Tableau, right?
Yeah.
So for sure, that was a big deal, and we're going to see more big deals probably. Even if we were going to see them anyway, um, we're probably going to see them now. But on the other hand, the flip side of that is maybe some companies say, maybe I want to keep my water, my powder dry, and not spend my cash right now. Maybe I want to, so there's two sides to that. If business is going to drop a little, then maybe you might not make the acquisition that you were going to make, right? So I mean, we're thinking about getting new windows. Now we're not thinking about it.
Windows look pretty good right now.
So if people are thinking like us, are thinking about this on an individual level, like maybe we want to put off big expenses until we see how things turn out. It may work out that way as well. So it could be a little of both.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about digital transformation. What does this whole, pandemic, how does it make companies potentially look at transformation differently than they did previously? Does this speed up the process? Do they feel like they have to be able to have more of this digital in place so that they can, not have these disruptions that we're going through right now? If you're more like you and I, we're kind of used to doing the work from home thing, and a lot of our communications are like this or digital. We don't go into office, we don't have a lot of meetings face to face.
Right.
Do you see this changing the kind of the breadth and the depth and the speed of transformation?
Yeah, I think it kind of forces companies to think about that a little bit more carefully right now, right? And um, the companies that are were thinking about it are probably pushing the plans because that's what this is all about, right? They're going to need
Yeah.
ways to contact customers more digitally. They'll be certainly for the coming months. I mean, nobody knows how long this is going to last, but certainly you think for at least a couple months out, there's not going to be any face-to-face meetings. It's probably going to be somewhat longer than that. So if you aren't prepared to meet with your customers where they are, you have to figure out how to meet with them. And I mean, I was saying, like, this kind of tool is not that hard to use, but I ran into a little glitch right as I was coming in, and I kind of had
Right.
to troubleshoot it. And I'm capable of doing that. But if you some people, like they push the button and it either works or it doesn't, and if it doesn't work, then they don't know what to do, right? So,
Freak out a
and
little bit too.
yeah, so this technical glitches that happen with this technology all the time, and I think that you can't underestimate that, and you have to kind of have ways to train and work with people and figure out. There's going to be a lot of figuring out. I saw a thing about somebody was saying that their neighborhood kid, one of the kids in their neighborhood, was saying that they had started school on Zoom, and like the teacher didn't know how to start everybody muted, so they were so it was just like chaos, you know. So it was kind of amusing. I mean, the person was saying the kid was amused, but
Yeah.
it took a
The
couple of
teacher
days,
probably was.
and everybody kind of worked it out, and everybody's being patient. I think um, people recognize that this is new territory. So, but to answer your question, will it push digital transformation? I think it absolutely has to. I mean, people have to work digitally more, and um, this is going to force, the very highest levels of every company to start thinking, you know, much more about how to accelerate that. And it's been something I've been hearing, it's like 2014, like you have to digitally transform, and you hear it. I don't remember exactly the year, but it was probably just before I joined TechCrunch. So it was 2013 or 2014. I went to um, this marketing conference in Boston, and you know, these people were pretty ahead of the curve, and they were basically saying, "Look, everything you think you know is going to be wrong in about a year."
Wow.
And you sort of saw this deer in the headlights look from the marketers in the room, and these folks were essentially right. Everything did change. It went from the glossy brochures to online to social. I mean, and people have adapted, and I think people will adapt to this, but it's definitely going to it's going to force companies who are behind that to speed up.
So let me just end with this. What are you going to be looking out for over the next couple of months, 6 months, in the areas that you cover?
Well, I mean, we have to see how this plays out. I mean, this is going to have an impact. I mean, as people get sick, there are going to be people who can't work for a while. They're going to be, this people have to create redundancy in their organizations. There have to be people who can do multiple jobs,
Mm.
and you know, I think that looking at football, at Bill Belichick, he always makes sure that there are people who can do multiple things, and I think that a lot of organizations are going to have to adopt that mentality. In terms of where things go, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know how this is going to all play out. I mean, I hope it plays out as absolutely positively as it can play out, that we are indeed flattening the curve, that we are indeed, um, you know, chasing away the worst aspects of this, and that we will, um, that will come out of this without too much damage. But I think it's also naive to think that things aren't going to be a little topsy turvy for the next several months. And then even once we start to come back, and we start to go back to work, and we start to think about how we run our businesses, there's going to be a lot of soul searching, I think, and there's going to be a lot of uh, you know, philosophical changes maybe in how we approach everything that we do from a business and perspective. So whether that's good or bad, I don't know. I'd like to think that there are a lot of positive aspects to that, some of which I touched upon in the discussion. But I also know that there's going to be negative things, and we just have to see how that plays out and try to support one another as best we can, and understand that it's going to be tough on a lot of groups of people to get through this situation, and how businesses are able to address that and support people, both their employees and their customers and their communities, is I think that's how politicians are going to be judged, and I think that's how businesses are going to be judged, and how individuals, frankly, are going to be judged. I mean, we all have to be flexible, and we all have to be ready to do things a little differently than we've been doing them, and maybe go outside of our comfort zones, whatever that involves, and that it's not going to be easy, but I think it's going to be an interesting and turbulent few months ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think we can maybe take some inspiration and some lessons from some of the things that businesses are and individuals are doing currently. I mean, you just look at some of the sports guys; they're giving money to make sure the folks get paid that would otherwise not be getting paid if the games aren't going on. So that's really kind of an inspiration. But then even like look at what Amazon did. They're going to hire 100,000 people and pay them $2 more than they usually do over a certain amount of time. And this is kind of maybe a difficult one for some small businesses, but I guess Amazon is like, important times call for important measures, and doing something like, saying to their third party sellers, hey, unless you're, going to be putting in items that are essentials, we're not going to, don't ship them in.
Right.
And because they're trying to, I guess, streamline the supply chain and the distribution so that the essential needs that people have, they're able to, handle them. And so, yeah, there's a lot of, I think you're going to see a growing number of examples of companies stepping up. And that's good to see. It's good to see
I agree
that,
yeah.
Competitors even working together for the greater good, like you're talking about.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And I again, looking for silver linings in difficult situations. I mean, if we can figure out ways to work together better, um, in the end, we'll all benefit from that in the long run. And I'd like to think that once we figure this all out and we get past this situation, that we'll take those lessons that we learned, the positive lessons and the negative ones, and that we, move forward and, uh, you know, learn from that.
Well, this has been cool, man. I really appreciate you taking the time and also
Thanks for
sharing
having me.
your expertise on all that we talked about, and also sorry about Tom Brady, man.
Yeah, well, there are worse things going on in the world right now than Tom Brady moving to Tampa.
Who do you think is going to be your quarterback? You have any guesses?
I don't know. I really don't. I imagine they're going to go get somebody. I don't think Stidham's, who's the kid they drafted out of Auburn last year. I don't think he's quite ready for prime time. I was speculating now that the Colts signed Philip Rivers, that maybe they can go back and get
Oh,
Jacoby
Jacoby. Oh.
Brissett, who's somebody that the coaching staff really liked. And um, they have a bunch of third round draft picks and they have a bunch of sixth round draft picks, and I think they could package a couple of those together and get him back. And I think that would be there could be worse ways to deal with that.
You don't want Jameis Winston throwing 30 interceptions for
I
you?
absolutely don't.
All right, Ron. Hey, thanks again, man. We really appreciate it.
All right, thanks for having me. Always good to talk to you, Brent.
Absolutely.
Bye bye.